In 1799, the Blaisdell family in Sullivan, Maine claimed a voice was speaking from their cellar. The voice claimed its name was Nelly Butler, a woman who had died 3 years earlier in childbirth. It ordered a marriage, delivered a prophecy of a woman's death, and demanded a body to be exhumed. And over 100 individuals witnessed the spirit's voice and saw it. This week, we're telling the story of America's first documented haunting, and I promise you this is unlike anything you've ever heard. I'm Sean.
I'm Kathy.
And I'm Chris.
And this is Weirder After Dark. We got a long one here today, so I'm thinking maybe we just dive right into it.
I'm in because that intro hooked me, so I'm ready.
I don't have to come up with clever banter?
No banter today. I think
Let's go.
I think we're ready to dive in. It's autumn, 1800. We're on Butler's Point in Franklin, Maine, roughly 35 miles northeast of where Bar Harbor sits today. The New England leaves are turning, beautiful, almost violently so. Reds, oranges, deep rusted browns. Some cling stubbornly to the peninsula's trees. Others drift restlessly across the graveyard floor, skittering under the force of the frigid Atlantic wind that blows off Taunton Bay. 80 locals stand in the cold, stomachs knotted, stares completely blank. They gather around an unmarked grave beneath the sky as gray and unforgiving as the moment is itself. Some grip shovels, others stand bundled in thick wool, hands folded, eyes fixed on the earth. A few are crying, but most of them just silent. The only words spoken are whispered prayers for forgiveness, barely loud enough to rise above the gusts of the wind. The first shovel strikes the ground. The sound is dull, heavy, metallic. Another man steps forward and drives his shovel down beside it. The frozen soil resists. Their muscles strain, but they push harder. With every impact, the onlookers flinch as if they can feel the reverberations rising up from beneath their boots. For nearly half an hour, they dig. When the ground finally gives way, no one wants to look. But when they do, in the men's trembling hands lies the small, exhumed body of George Butler's child. Now the men stand motionless, staring down at what they've just done. Why are they doing this? Why has an entire community, more than 80 people, gathered to dig up a dead child?
Yeah. That's what I want to know.
The truth is stranger than fiction, but it's real. This is a documented event. This actually happened. They're exhuming the remains of George Butler's child because a spirit of his dead wife has appeared to more than 100 members of this community and has delivered orders, a prophecy, and a command that this is in fact God's will. And now the entire town has decided to obey those orders.
Seriously?
This is crazy.
It's insane.
So they all say they saw this ghost, and the ghost is like, you need to exhume my kid's body.
It's wilder than that. This is just one of the things.
That's insane.
You said in the intro, this is the first recorded or documented haunting in the United States?
The first alleged documented haunting, that we actually have actual facts to look back on.
I mean, we had alleged hauntings in Europe
beforehand,
before the United States was even around, but this is the first one in the United States we know of.
You got it.
Wow. Okay, cool. Oh, and it happened here in New England.
New England.
Hey.
And like I said in the intro, this is going to be unlike anything you ever heard because this is the story of the haunting of Nelly Butler. In order to understand how 80 rational adults ended up digging up a child's grave on the command of a ghost, we have to start at the beginning with a woman named Eleanor Nelly Hooper. Nelly was born on April 25th, 1776. Does that ring a bell?
1776.
America.
Revolution.
Independence. Her father, David Hooper, was a Revolutionary War veteran, and her mother, Joanna, gave birth to 9 children. Wow. Nelly being the second oldest. For the Hoopers, like most families living in rural New England in the late 1700s, faith was central to their daily life. You got to think this is how people understood everything, explained everything, especially death. And I only called this out just because it's going to be an important element, I think, for the rest of the story. This also probably goes without saying, but imagine growing up in coastal Maine in the late 1700s. It looks very different from what it looks like today. This is a postcard Maine.
Maine, the way life used to be.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Doesn't it look all that different? Take out the cars and electricity, it's probably pretty close.
It's probably pretty close.
That's fair.
Houses may be a little bit smaller, but...
This is isolation. Hard winters, brutal coastal living, mills powered by streams. These were outpost, shipbuilding towns populated mostly by people barely scraping by and trying to make a living off the land's timber and the Atlantic Ocean. The communities around Franklin, where Nelly was raised, are Egypt, Sullivan, and Sorrento, and they all were a tightly bound, knit community. Everyone knew everyone because survival meant cooperation, and people had no choice but to rely on each other. At 19, Nelly met George Butler, and from all accounts, the match made perfect sense, and Nelly fell quick. George was a sea captain, successful, established, already carrying responsibility far beyond his years, and his family was the exact kind of family a woman would want to marry into. His father, Moses Butler, had fought in the Revolutionary War, just like Nelly's father did, and the Butlers owned and operated a local sawmill and were regarded as one of Franklin's earliest English families. They were stable, respected, and well-positioned for the times. For the Hoopers, Nelly's family, this was not just romance. It was security. It was reputation. And so sometime around 1795, Nelly Hooper married George Butler. And they settled on Butler's Point, a heavily wooded stretch of land along Egypt Bay, just a few miles from where Nelly had grown up. And for 2 years, their life appeared ordinary. But then in 1797, Nelly became pregnant, and what should have been a happy moment turned bad. It was an extremely tough delivery that the baby didn't survive. And to make matters worse, less than 24 hours later, on June 13th, 1797, Nelly died as well. The two were buried on Butler Point in unmarked graves. But for some reason that the record doesn't explain, Nelly and the child were buried separately. But this isn't where Nelly's story ends. And in fact, 3 years after her death, in some ways, is where the story actually begins. Because something strange happened after her death. But it didn't happen at the home Nelly shared with George. It didn't even happen at the Franklin home where she grew up. It happened 10 miles away in a farmhouse cellar in Sullivan, Maine. And that's when people began to hear knocking. It's now winter, 1799. The Blaisdell farmhouse sits on the granite shores of Taunton Bay, where it resists the oppressive Atlantic chill. Inside, 14-year-old Lydia Blaisdell lays confined to her bed as her body fights a sickness so severe that her life hangs in the balance. Her fever burns through her small frame, her strength is completely drained, and her breathing is shallow. Lydia's father, Abner Blaisdell, and the rest of the family are bedside, tending to Lydia's every need and praying to their gods that this soon will pass. The atmosphere is heavy, uncertain, and some of the family is already emotionally preparing for the loss of their beloved Lydia. And it's in this heaviness of that emotion that the entire family hears a deep, powerful knock that seems to shake the frame of the home. The family freezes. They glance at each other. What was that? Was it the wind? But years of coastal living quickly chases that explanation away. These are hardy New Englanders. They know wind. Could it have been a branch, maybe striking the side of the house? Unsure, they leave Lydia's side and search the home. They check the doors, the windows, the shutters, even trace the outside perimeter. But their search turns up completely empty. There's no loose shutter, no broken latch, no fallen trees, nothing. With no answers at hand, the attention and emotion shifts back to poor Lydia as they return to her bedside. But just as they return, 3 more knocks. This time they're slow. They're more powerful. Their reverberations pulse through the floorboards, and the Blaisdell family can feel the vibrations through the floor into their bones. Even stranger this time, the sounds aren't coming from outside. They're coming from below them. Panic strikes. The family takes count. Someone must be playing some sort of prank, but everyone's accounted for. And if they're all standing right here in Lydia's room, who or what is in the cellar? Their thoughts are interrupted by more knocks, this time so loud and unexplainable the children start to cry. Abner, being the head of the family, takes on the responsibility. He lights a candle and heads towards the cellar door. At the top of the stairs, he pauses. He mentally works through the basement layout. It's nighttime after all, and electricity doesn't exist. The cellar has 3 entry points: the interior door he's standing at, a small window, and an exterior hatch that leads outside. If someone is down there, he'll certainly hear them if they try to escape. And if he doesn't, he'll certainly know someone could have been down there if the hatch is unlocked or the window's open. Abner somehow musters the courage to pull the cellar door open. As he does, he leans in and lets out a, "Hello?" His voice echoes off the dirt, the walls, the low beams, and is met with silence. He hears no footsteps, no voices, no breathing. The silence is striking, the kind where you can almost feel it pushing back onto you. At this point, Abner has stopped breathing himself. He's just listening. Finally, his breath breaks the stillness and he takes his first steps down the staircase.
Don't do it, Abner.
Don't go.
Close the door.
The candlelight is illuminating and leading his path. As the light flickers, shadows dance around the dirt floors and bounce off the walls. With each step, the pine floorboards of the staircase groan so much they sound like they could snap. From the doorway, the family nervously watches. When Abner reaches the landing, his heart is racing. Somehow, even in the dead of winter, in his cold cellar, a bead of sweat forms and drips down his forehead. His eyes dart around the cellar. It's darker than normal, kind of dungeon-like. He holds his candle toward the window. With the light, he can see about 5 to 10 feet in front of him. Anything beyond that is just a silhouette that quickly disappears into what feels like an all-consuming blackness. Abner inches his way closer to the window, and as he does, he reaches his hand out to check it. It's not broken. Only one possible entrance left, he thinks. He backs off and turns his attention to the exterior cellar door. He can't see the door from where he stands, and he can't help but think that this darkness feels heavier than normal. He's normally not a man who feels fear. He fought the British after all. He shot people. He saw men die in battle. This is just a dark basement. He fights through the thoughts and takes 2 steps towards the door. His heart starts to pound. He's not sure if he wants it to be unlocked or locked, because which is worse? If it's unlocked, his suspicion is confirmed. Someone was inside his home. Even if they left, that's unsettling, right?
Unlock's better.
Yeah. At least then he can be like, yeah, my peace is disturbed. But if it's locked, what does that mean? Could someone be in the cellar with him right now, hiding, waiting, watching? That thought worries him so much that he can feel the eyes of a third party drilling into the back of his head. This is no time for those thoughts, though. Abner shakes his head and takes 3 more steps towards the door. He squints, and finally, fighting through the darkness, it comes into view. The door is closed. In fact, as the candlelight shines off it, it's clearly locked, undisturbed. He swallows and chokes his own breath or saliva, something. His heart beats a little faster. Abner quickly turns his body back around towards the center of the cellar and lets out a flustered, "Who is here?" One of his children lets out a cry from the staircase. It startles him, but even he is impressed with the conviction and the strength he delivered that call with. Again, his plea for an answer is met with a deafening silence. Abner traces every corner of the cellar over the next few moments, behind old furniture, lifting up boxes, but ultimately finds nothing. Nothing unexpected, at least. But if there's nothing here, what in the world explains those knocks? Abner has no idea. With the search failing to turn up any leads and feeling content with knowing his home is empty of any intruders, at least as of right now, he again turns his attention back to Lydia. This is an absolutely bone-chilling and unexplainable experience. So from here, the Blaisdell family pray and lean into their religious beliefs, and they ask God, and this is a quote, that if there was deception in this extraordinary injunction, that the Lord would make it known to them, and that if the cause was of God, that they might be preserved. The Blaisdell family would hear nothing more that night from God or anything else for that matter.
I just love the fact that his whole family's upstairs and he's like, yeah, we'll see you in a little bit. Look.
They were watching from the top of the stairs.
Yeah, they were standing at the staircase.
They were giving
such a
support.
Kathy move. I'll be upstairs with the lights on.
Hey, he's the man. He's the man of the family. He's going down there. He's owning it.
I'd be the Abner, wouldn't I?
Yeah, you'd the
Damn
Abner. Yeah, it wouldn't be me. Even if I'm here, I'm like, you got that, Chris? I'm at the staircase. I'm a little kid screaming. Ah!
I'm not going downstairs.
Gang, we've been talking about it for months, but they're finally here. We've officially started collaborating with Ghost Poppy on 3 uniquely Weirder After Dark candles, and they're available right now.
Our first one is simply branded Weirder After Dark, and it's everything you would expect when sitting around a campfire, sharing stories with your friends in New England.
Hints of maple, clove, earth, smoked amber, pine, cedar, patchouli, a true hanging out by the fire vibe.
We'll also have 2 scents inspired by 2 of our favorite Weirder After Dark tales.
The first being Chris's story on Boone Island.
Guys, wait, wasn't that one about cannibalism?
It sure was, but it also takes place on an island off the rocky coast of Maine, and that's what you can expect with this candle.
Think scents of moss, earth, juniper, bergamot, ozone, the fresh sense of being on an island after an intense thunderstorm.
That sounds so much nicer than what I was thinking. Thank you, guys.
So much nicer. And lastly, a scent inspired by the Voynich manuscript, a story we were all captivated by. And for this one, imagine yourself peaceful and curiously reading an ancient manuscript in a quiet library.
You'll get the scents of bergamot, eucalyptus, balsam, leather, and patchouli.
And you can feel good about buying these candles. Why?
Because it's made by a small US-based business, and they've been such a pleasure to work with. Carla and her husband Sean make these candles by hand. They're 100% soy-based, vegan, paraben, and sulfate and cruelty-free, which means absolutely no nasty chemicals and all the good feels for you.
So gang, if you're loving these episodes and want to support us, head over to ghostpoppy.com and find the Weirder After Dark collection. The link will be in the description and pick up some of your own candles today. It would absolutely mean the world.
Thanks.
Like knocks so strong, it shakes the frame
the
of the
house.
house.
And there's no heating pipes.
Yeah.
There's no duct
that's what I'm
work. So,
thinking.
yeah.
Like that's where like my mind was going. So I'm like, it's not like today where like maybe we would say like it was like the furnace or a boiler. Like they didn't have those things. So what could you come up with to rationalize that?
You can't.
You can't.
You go pray to God.
Yeah.
That's what
Unless
you do.
like you're thinking that like, because your foundation was made of stone.
Yeah.
So maybe like your foundation cracked.
Earthquake maybe or something.
Yeah, something like that. And just like the way you described like the blackness. And when you said he turned around, I was almost expecting you to say that his candle went out because he turned so fast. I was like, no, please don't make the candle go out.
Over the following days, the knocking continued. And with every night, the situation seemed to escalate. What started as a punishing vibrational knock was eventually followed by a voice. A woman's voice. And each night, the voice seemed to grow in strength, as if it slowly was being brought back to life. And the family would hear the voice get clearer, it would get stronger with every single day that passed. And eventually, the voice could speak more than a word. It could speak sentences, and it could speak calmly, deliberately, clearly, appearing right in front of them sometimes, behind them at other times. Sometimes it sounded as if it was coming from every single direction. And it wasn't captured like an EVP gets captured today. Allegedly, this voice could talk to them for hours at a time, intelligently.
And the whole family's experiencing this. This is not one guy who's just...
The entire family. As December turns into January, the Blaisdell family claims grew harder and harder to ignore. Now, they claimed they were no longer speaking to a voice that just appeared from the darkness, but that in the cellar, they could now speak directly to a faint, shrouded apparition, the apparition of a woman. More puzzling, each night would start the same. It would start with knocks, almost as if the apparition was announcing it was about to arrive. Then, once its presence was announced, it would start to communicate verbally. And eventually, if you were patient enough, it would slowly start to appear as a glowing light, an orb of magical whites and reds, and then lastly as a full-blown apparition. Maybe the weirdest part? The apparition claimed to be someone the Blaisdells knew by name. The apparition claimed that it once went by the name Nelly Butler. The name Nelly Butler is the name of the woman who died 3 years earlier during childbirth on Butler's Point, the daughter of David Hooper, the former wife of George Butler. And the scepter, the spirit, spoke that it had a divine order that it was to give and to deliver, a message from God, a message for Lydia Blaisdell and George Butler, and for their families and the entire community. According to the spirit, Lydia Blaisdell and George Butler were meant to be married, and it would go through whatever ends to make sure it was successful in delivering God's demands.
Okay, so the ghost is coming back saying that these people need to get married?
It's basically saying, God sent me here. Lydia, the dying girl that we talked about, 13, 14 years old at this point, has to marry George Butler, who was Nelly, the alleged spirit's husband. And he's 29 at the time.
Sounds like...
Sounds like the Epstein files.
It sounds like a grown man trying to make excuses for marrying a child.
Yeah. Although 13, 14 is still way on the younger side. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes.
But back then,
it's not as crazy as it is today.
Yeah.
Still crazy.
Still crazy. Still absolutely crazy. And not okay.
Actually, you know what? I'm just saying this one because this is going out there. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's absolutely crazy.
Read the files.
Yeah.
We
have a platform.
Yeah.
So they're experiencing this as a ghost or as like an angel, like a spirit from God.
Yeah, they are, I think, seeing it from the lens that this is a angel sent from God, is how they're kind of seeing it. They describe it throughout the reading as a specter, so spiritual ghost.
Yeah.
A lot of people actually credit these events as being the first moment of the spiritual movement inside of the United States. Think back to like the Fox sisters.
Yes.
It was spiritualism and how they would have ectoplasm and do seances and that stuff. People will say this is the first one in America, and this is what kicks all that off.
Wow.
Yeah. Interestingly, at the time these events began, there was already a connection between Lydia Blaisdell and George Butler. The two had been developing what appeared to be a courtship for at least the previous 2 years. But Abner Blaisdell did not approve of this marriage. And let's give that man a round of applause. Good dad. You're a good dad. He could not approve. George was 29 years old. Lydia was not even 15 yet at the time. Even in the late 1700s, as we talked about, the age gap raised serious concerns. In Maine during this period, most women did not marry until they were 18 to even 20 years old. Abner resisted the idea strongly. He demanded that Lydia and George end the relationship at once. To Abner, this courtship wasn't just uncomfortable. It threatened the household's reputation. Allowing it could stain the Blaisdell name in the tight-knit community where everyone knew everyone's business.
And it's just wrong.
And it's wrong. She's a child.
Gross. But now, in the face of what appeared to be divine intervention, a manifestation claiming to speak for God himself, Abner's resistance began to crack. Maybe this marriage was not only acceptable, maybe it was required. On January 1st, Nelly appeared again, this time with a call to action. The spirit of Nelly instructed Lydia and her father to travel to Franklin, a 10-mile journey in the middle of a harsh winter storm, to deliver a message to Moses Butler, George's father. The spirit instructed them to bring scripture, and specifically to read Mark chapter 10, where it says, this is a quote, "For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and cleave to his wife. What therefore God hath joined together, let no man put asunder." In English, if God ordains a marriage, parents shouldn't be able to get in the way and they don't have the authority to stop it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Gross.
Yeah.
Yeah. Feeling compelled by this divine task, even in the middle of a winter storm, Lydia and Abner set out from Sullivan toward Franklin. According to the account, during the journey, Lydia grew deeply distressed. She was not entirely comfortable with the idea of this marriage, especially one commanded from beyond the grave. The record states that midday during the snowstorm, Nelly appeared to Lydia. There's no claim that her father saw it, but to Lydia, Nelly consoled her and urged her onward and told her that this marriage was required and she had to follow through with it. So she continued. When they finally arrived at the home of Moses Butler, George's father, they delivered the message exactly as instructed, but Moses was not persuaded. The idea that a spirit had ordered his son to marry a 14-year-old girl and that this order was divine was not something he was willing to accept. But Nelly, and perhaps God himself, was not finished. Over the next few days, Nelly's spirits gave Abner and Lydia new instructions. If George's father Moses would not believe them, then another man must be summoned, one who could be convinced, David Hooper, Nelly's own father. If this truly was the spirit of his deceased daughter, then David Hooper would know. He would be able to confirm her voice, her appearance, and so he was called to join the Blaisdell family at their home in Sullivan. When David Hooper arrived, he was invited into the cellar, and according to the account, the voice addressed him directly. It spoke of matters known only to him, conversation so private that David Hooper left convinced. In David's own words, recorded in his official testimony, he said, "On January 2nd, I went to Abner Blaisdell's home, and by conversing with her, obtained such clear and irresistible tokens of her being the spirit of my own daughter, gave me no less satisfaction than admiration and delight. She gave me a reason satisfactory to me of why she even made me go through the trouble of going to their home instead of appearing in my own house."
This is just getting weird.
With David Hooper convinced, Nelly wasn't done proving herself. George Butler was next. Nelly wanted to speak directly to him. George Butler hesitantly descended into the cellar, not as a curious visitor, but as a widower, as a man who had buried his wife and child just 3 years earlier, as a man now being told that same wife was waiting for him in the dark, calling for him. So as he stood in the dark cellar of the Blaisdell home, racked with emotion, confused, unsure, probably questioning everything, he asked the voice a simple question. "Who are you?" What follows is George's testimony. It answered, "I was once your wife." The voice asked me, "Do you not remember what I told you when I was alive?" I answered, "I do not really know what you mean." The voice said, "Do you not remember I told you I did not think I should live long with you? I told you that if you were to leave me, I should never wish to change my condition. But if I was to leave you, I could not blame you if you did." George added, "This message was true and did pass between me and my first wife while she was alive, and there was no living person within hearing but she and myself." He then continued, As Lydia Blaisdell and I stood side by side, there was something that appeared right there in that moment in my view, like a person in a winding sheet, and on her arm there appeared to be a very small child. I reached out my left hand to take hold of it. I saw my hand in the middle of it, but could feel nothing. That same evening, it appeared and disappeared to me 3 separate times. And this is George Butler's own sworn testimony of what happened during his interaction with Nellie, his wife. And he wasn't alone in the cellar either. Frederick Hossoff was also there that night and during that exact moment. And we have written testimony of what he saw. And he said, I was an eye and ear witness of all the facts declared in the last testimony and can attest particularly that I plainly saw George Butler put his hand on the apparition and saw his hand pass through it, glowing with the light.
Yeah, this is a bunch of people collaborating the story.
We're just getting started, guys. This is like insane.
So it's her holding her baby.
Yeah, her holding her dead baby. She's basically like, when we were alive, I said that, if you left, I wouldn't move on. But I said, I wanted you to move on, move on.
How do you explain that if it was like a private, like intimate conversation?
And I was thinking, well, this family's got money. They want to marry into this family, but you can fake a voice. You cannot fake an apparition.
Well, yeah. And I was thinking too that like maybe the girl was in on it. So like
Lydia,
maybe she had someone who was doing the voice. This way here, my dad will think like it's okay for me to marry him. But it sounds like I didn't really want to marry him.
What was interesting about that evening and about many of the following encounters is that what people claim to have seen changed depending on who you asked. They all seem to have some sort of experience, but they all weren't consistent. For example, sometimes in the household, people would report seeing a woman shrouded in white, sometimes described as holding a small child in her arms. Multiple people could be experiencing this at the same time, and some would see the child, and other people would say they couldn't see a child. Some people would say, I saw a woman, and other people would say, I just saw white light. And they would all be observing it at the same exact time, but having different slightly experience, all saying something happened, but describing it completely different. And sometimes someone would report seeing nothing at all, only hearing the voice, but not actually seeing the apparition.
It almost makes me think like the way that the story started was it was like these knocks, right? So then like they go and they investigate and they don't find anything to rationalize it. But then, they start thinking, okay, there's something more here. And then they have like another experience. And in my mind, as you were reading it, I got the idea that like it's almost like the more they believe there's something more, the more it like gets its energy to like manifest itself. So
it's
maybe
like feeding off of their belief or something like that.
Almost like you can't see what you don't believe in.
Maybe.
Yeah. I didn't add this in the story, but they believed that you would only see the spirit if you wanted to see the spirits. And there was actually some written testimony of one of the people who went into the basement with like 14 other people. Before she was about to walk down the staircase, she said in her head, I don't want to see this. I don't want to see I'm scared. I don't want to see this. And then everyone else claimed to have saw it, but she couldn't see it. So that kind of fed also into like the divine intervention moment of like protection or like,
Is that why I never see anything on a ghost tour?
That's what I was just going to say. Maybe
please don't be something in this closet. Please don't be something in the closet.
But maybe
that's good. There's nothing in here.
Maybe that is why like some people are more susceptible to...
Yeah, they're open to it.
Yeah, they're more open to it. And they're more like, I want to see it. Unlike you, Sean, where you go in super thirsty and it's like, no.
Yeah. It's just like, chill, bro. As these events build over the coming days, more and more witnesses claim to have witnessed the spirit of Nelly Butler. And the word continued to spread. And it spread fast through all the local towns. Franklin, Sullivan, Egypt, Sorrento. People began arriving at the Blaisdell farmhouse just randomly at night, showing up, being like, I want to see this ghost, bro.
I mean, like, I'm sleeping. Go away.
But what's even more fascinating is that the spirit didn't shy away from an audience. It would communicate with its guests, sometimes, as we said, for hours on end. It would answer their questions directly. It would quote scripture. It would move about the cellar. Sometimes it appeared as a woman in white, sometimes as a voice, sometimes holding the infant child. Other times it came completely alone. And what else was really interesting is it would call for particular guests. It would ask the Blaisdell family to bring certain people to it so it could communicate directly with it. Like, this is a completely different type of apparition than I've ever heard of in my life.
Is she still around and do they do tours?
Yeah, we'll have to. We're going to Maine. But as more and more people showed up, the community started to splinter. Supporters believed it was indeed divine manifestation. Skeptics were certain it was deception of some kind, albeit one they couldn't rationally explain. Maybe some type of religious hysteria was also even thrown out there. Others were convinced it was the devil's doing and that it was actually a demon that was haunting the Blaisdells' basement, trying to pull on over on the community.
I'm going with a demon because it wants a grown man to marry a child.
Yeah, agreed.
It's the devil.
It's the devil. But crowds continued to show and debates continued to run wild. Despite the skepticism spreading through the community, the spirit did not withdraw its command that George and Lydia were required to marry. And I didn't throw this inside the story, so I'm going to add it in right now. Once Nelly's father, David Hooper, was convinced that it was his daughter, David was actually able to convince Moses to say okay to the marriage and allow it to move forward. So the pressure from the community mounting that, no, that's my daughter, it finally fed over and won over Moses as well, which is just insane. Absolutely insane. According to the account, after visits from David Hooper and George Butler, belief within the Blaisdell household solidified and the marriage was officially set for May 28th, 1800. And it's here that the story, if it wasn't already, gets strange.
There's more.
There's more. It gets strange, Sean.
There's more. To this point, it could seem that this could all be some sort of elaborate hoax perpetrated by Lydia or maybe even George. But the record goes on to explain that as May approached, Lydia was not unwavering in her commitment to this marriage. As the weeks passed and the public debate intensified, Lydia began to falter. She expressed doubts. The weight of the situation, the scrutiny, the accusations, the strangeness of it all began to press on her. And the record states that Lydia considered fleeing, heading south to live with relatives in York, Maine. She wanted distance from the cellar, from the crowds, from the pressure, and from Nelly. But as her plan to leave began to take shape, Nelly appeared, and Nelly told her that if she was to sail, that her afflictions would sail with her, and there would be absolutely no escaping. Nelly continued that the marriage would proceed as required by God, and so it did. On May 28th, 1800, Lydia Blaisdell married George Butler. But the events in the cellar did not end with the wedding. In fact, one day later, Abner Blaisdell reported the following testimony. The specter conversed with 3 of my family. To dispel their fears, she introduced her conversation by these words. I have come again. Be not afraid. I will not hurt you. I am a friend to you all. One of them answered, I cannot help being afraid. Which, yup. Cool. To which the spirit responded, you need not be. I never did hurt you, did I? No, they answered. And I shall not hurt you, said the specter. And then the spirit looked at George Butler, and it said, be kind to your wife, for she will not be with you long. She will have but one child, and then will die.
Oh.
A shocking prophecy foretelling Lydia is about to experience the same death as Nelly herself. This now was no longer a spirit coordinating some type of divine marriage. It was now striking a completely different tone by prophesizing Lydia's death. I can only imagine how that must have felt hearing that. It also complicates the accusations that Lydia was involved in some type of hoax. You're not going to prophesize your own fucking death, right? Like that's weird. With the wedding finalized, spring quickly turned to summer, and the gatherings at the Blaisdell home continued to grow larger because Nelly was not finished. She was still showing up. By August, what had begun as knocking in the cellar would erupt into something even stranger. It's August 14th, just after midnight. The Blaisdell cellar is full tonight. 47 people full, in fact, and they all stand shoulder to shoulder in the pitch dark. They're nervous, excited, restless. Most have seen the spirit of Nelly before at this point. The air is thick, heavy with sweat and anticipation, and it was in the anticipation that Abner finally calls for silence. It's time. The room immediately obeys. As they all stand in the darkness, minutes pass, one after another, and as they do, the audience can just feel the tension tightening. And then they hear it, the knock. A gasp rips through the room. It comes from one corner of the cellar. Bodies shift, elbows collide. It's near impossible to keep your balance in the pitch black. Before they can steady themselves, another knock. This time, the opposite side of the cellar. Then a third, further away. Testimony from Miss Sally Martin described the events with the following. While the succession was as rapid, one sound could clearly be distinguished from another. We were all certain that no person, nor even several persons, could make sounds so distant from each other in such quick succession. Even if it were possible to be near or in any of those places, they couldn't do it without being discovered. And then they heard it. Nelly's voice, sharp, clear, direct. The voice declared that it is from heaven, that she was once Nellie Hooper, and that tonight the doubters will be answered. The spirit commanded the room of 47. You must go with me and march in order 2 by 2 and sing a psalm, for God is a God of order. March in order 2 by 2? What? Where are they going? What are they thinking? Well, the destination was James Miller's house. James Miller was one of the loudest skeptics in the town, and immediately it became clear that tonight, August 13th and the morning of August 14th is about changing the narrative. It only took one person to step forward, one person to commit to the events that were about to unfold, because once one person did, so did another, and suddenly all 47 people were climbing out of the cellar and spilling into the Maine night. Sally Martin continues her deposition by saying, Nellie said she would go with us. We did as the voice told us. As we went, I saw a person form, as white as anything could possibly appear, walking directly by Lydia Blaisdell's side, with locked arms. By the time the marchers reached Miller's home, he was awake. His own testimony reads, I heard singing as I lay in bed. Approaching to my home, presently, by my leave, my house was filled with people, and I heard knockings on the floor. When I heard the knockings, I asked, What do you want from me? And it answered, I have come to let you know that I can speak in this cellar as well.
Oh my God.
Are you convinced? Of course, he answered, I am.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Miller added that he even saw a personal shape coming towards him, white as light. So now, with the doubter, James Miller, now convinced, Nellie still wasn't done with her tricks that evening. Hannah Gatcombe describes what happens next in her testimony. We were told we must stand out in the field, and that if we did, she would appear before us and walk with Lydia Blaisdell. Of course, they did as instructed. Hannah continues, and she did. I saw the appearance of a woman in white walking directly with Lydia. By the end of the night, nearly 100 people had gathered for the event and claimed to witness something or another. By the time the crowd returned to the Blaisdell home, something had shifted. This was no longer a strange occurrence in a rural cellar. This is now a movement.
Yeah, she's rallying the whole community for something.
Believers, as you can imagine, emboldened. Skeptics, a little quieter after this one. And the spirit, according to the record, was not finished proving itself. In the days that followed the August march, the spirit came back, and Nellie this time declared that her infant child had not properly been positioned inside of its grave, and that the child must be moved 30 feet closer to Nellie's body itself, so that when Judgment Day came, they both could go to heaven together.
Hasn't she already passed judgment? Like judgment,
I cannot claim to understand the afterlife. I don't know. It confused things a little for me. As you can imagine by how this story went and the cold open I started with, the community complied. More than 80 people gathered at Butler's Point, where Nellie and her child were buried, and the infant's remains were exhumed, moved, and then reburied 30 feet from their original resting place. And that's fucking weird, man. That's fucking weird. This, for the most part, is where most of the spiritual stuff kind of ends and Nellie stops kind of showing up. So some people think baby got moved closer. It's the cap on it all. However, we can't forget the prophecy that had been spoken months earlier. The spirit had warned that Lydia would not live long after their marriage. And remember, their marriage took place on May 28th, 1800. Just 10 months later, on March of 1801, Lydia Butler went into labor. She was 16 years old, and just like Nellie, record says the delivery was a difficult one, and just as it had 4 years earlier on Butler's Point, did not end well. The child died, and Lydia died with it, 10 months after the wedding, exactly as the prophecy foretold. Before we close this story, there's one more name you need to know. Abraham Cummings. Cummings was a minister and evangelist who later compiled and documented many of the testimonies surrounding Nelly Butler's haunting. Without him, much of what we know would have been lost to time. But Cummings interviewed, investigated, documented, and published the testimony of the people involved in these events. And that is where most of these quotes used here today come from, a collection of his updated work that was used to review by a Maine library. But Abraham Cummings allegedly wasn't just a recorder of the events. He, in fact, in 1800, saw Nellie and went to the Blaisdell home and heard her speak. Now, it wasn't much context added, but it said that he left unimpressed. But he was so captivated by the events and what was going on in the community that he just chose to document it. Well, 5 years after Lydia's death, he actually claimed to have seen something that did impress him, and he wrote about it. Sometime in July 1806 in the evening, I was informed by two persons that they had just seen the specter in the field. About 10 minutes after, I went out, not to see a miracle, for I believed that they had been mistaken. Looking toward an eminence 12 rods distance from the house, I saw there one of the white rocks. This confirmed my opinion on the specter, and I paid no more attention to it. 3 minutes after, I accidentally looked in the same direction, and the white rock was in the air. Its form, a complete globe, white with a tincture of red, like the damask rose, and its diameter about 2 feet. Fully satisfied that this was nothing ordinary, I went toward it for more accurate examination. While my eye was constantly upon it, I went on 4 or 5 steps. When it came to me from the distance of 11 rods, as quick as lightning, it instantly assumed a personal form with a female's dress, but did not appear taller than a girl of 7 years old. When I looked upon her, I said in my mind, "You are not tall enough for the woman who has so frequently appeared among us." Immediately, she grew up as large and as tall as I considered to be a woman. Now she appeared glorious. On her head was the representation of the sun diffusing the luminous rectiliar rays every way towards the ground. Through the rays, I saw the personal form and the woman's dress. Then I recollected the objection of the encyclopedia that ghosts always appear to one alone. Now, said my mind, I see you as plainly as I ever saw a person on earth. But were I to converse with you, what proof could I produce? This was my fear, and that was the reason why I did not speak to her. But my fear was connected with infallible pleasure. Life, simplicity, purity, glory, all harmonizing in this celestial form, had the most delightful effect on my mind. And they appeared such a dullness afterwards upon all corporal objects as I never perceived before. I went into the house and gave the information, no doubting that she had come to spend more time with us as she had before. We then decided to go back to see her again, but to my great disappointment, she had vanished. Then I saw one of the great errors of my life. That I had not spoken to her has been the matter of my regret for the hour of this. My word without witness has not been tedious. Believe or reject, it may do you no harm. And that is the final moment that Nelly appeared.
He's describing it like some kind of a spiritual experience. Like
it sounds that way.
Yeah.
Almost like an angel.
Yeah, with the lights coming down, and shining down. It was very angelical.
And he went on to become a preacher, and he recorded all this information from people from town.
And he never spoke to her, and then she was never seen again.
There's no other credible witnesses of Nelly ever again after that last moment. So I kind of see this all as happening kind of like 3-ish phases. Mm-hmm. Phase 1, we have the events inside the cellar. Phase 2, we all of a sudden see her being like, nah, I'm going to prove to you all that I'm real, and starting to show up in other places and traveling outside. They claim to see her both at night and in the middle of the day. And then last phase, this random showing like 6 years after her death. In front of Abraham here.
It's interesting because the activity grows with time, right? First, it's just a couple of knocks, and then I can hear a voice. Then there's a person talking, and then she's talking for hours.
Yeah.
And then she's going to different towns and different people's houses. Yeah. It's absolutely crazy.
There's so much of this story that I had to leave out. Otherwise, it was going to be like a 2-hour story. I totally recommend, if this at all gathered your interest, there's a fantastic book out there. I'll go ahead and I'll leave the link inside of the description, but it basically has all of Cummings' collected interviews, the letters he wrote, all the correspondence that potentially exist here. Also inside the book, all of the Cumming retellings of this tale, and they're all kind of splintered together. And it's just a really fascinating, about 180-page read. So highly recommend you do it, because there's so much more evidence I just couldn't fit into the story here today. So just want to throw that recommendation out. But are we ready to get into some theories?
Yes.
Yeah.
Some of these are things I read. Some of them are things I made up myself.
Okay.
So the first one that I threw out there was, is there something with Lydia? Is there something with George going on here where they are ultimately, as we've already talked about a little bit, trying to convince their fathers that they should get married? They both are completely objecting to this marriage. And weird, all of a sudden a spirit appears that's like, you should get married. It seems strange, right?
That's where I started.
Yeah. But there are some things that go against it, right? Like Lydia apparently resisted the marriage multiple times as it was happening. That doesn't eliminate George, though.
But you did say that before this happened, he was kind of grooming her.
It sounded like it,
for like 2 years prior to this.
Yeah. Could it have started as a hoax and then boiled crazy out of control?
And she couldn't get away from it?
Maybe. But in order for that to be true, we have to think about like, well, how would they hoax this, right? How would they do this? So there's a couple interesting things. The first thing I was thinking of is, do you remember when we went to the S.K. Pierce house? They had speaking tubes.
That's what I was thinking.
Could there be multiple speaking tubes wired into the cellar that's throwing the sounds and the voices amongst different places? And maybe it wasn't Lydia doing it. Maybe Lydia had one of her sisters upstairs helping her go through something
or
like
a friend.
this. Most of the community thought it was Lydia, obviously trying to pressure George into marrying her. However, there were multiple times that Lydia would be in the basement while the spirit was showing itself up, and the spirit would tell Lydia to go upstairs so they could prove that it was not Lydia. And then the spirit would remain. It would keep talking to them. So that kind of throws an interesting little element into the mix as well, too.
Well, yeah, and you can't explain an apparition or a light.
I didn't think so either, Chris. But I have the interesting theory here.
Yeah.
All right. So there's a couple pieces of details that glinted throughout the story, and I couldn't make sense of it. So I'm going to add it in here. Whenever the apparition would appear, apparently it would really go like this. Abner would get everyone in the basement. He'd blow out a candle. It'd go pitch dark.
Yeah.
You'd hear the knocks. The voices would appear. Most of the time, from what I was reading, before the apparition would appear, Abner would force everyone back upstairs and would bring them down and sit them in a particular area. And I found that strange. That adds an element of, that doesn't explain the apparition, but it now just made me go, huh.
But it does explain that if he's doing something like that, and he's setting something up and he's positioning, candles to be in the right spot to cast light off a silver plate or something, like if I'm sitting there saying, I see her. Sean, you see her, right?
Yeah.
And you want to believe it. You want to be a part of this. And it's not that you're intentionally lying, but now you're like, oh yeah, I do. You've kind of create the image that you want people to see.
Of course.
So yeah.
Now, some of the descriptions of the apparition, to lean into that, Kathy, they did describe it as flickering, which gets me thinking about a candle. Now, as I started looking into this, there was something back in the day called a magic lantern that did exist and was invented in the 1650s, so it was definitely around in the 1800s. They'd basically have this device that you'd put a lantern inside, and it would act almost like a projector and would project images. Now, later in the end of the 1700s, they were able to actually animate the images and make them move a little bit by basically taking this slide, putting it in front of the lantern, and they would have a crank on the slide, and it could make the whatever it was projecting look like it was actually moving. Now, I have a few things that still make this one a little hard and kind of a stretch, right? You think you'd see a beam of light putting it someplace, right? Not only that, when I looked at these magic lanterns, I couldn't find a bunch of films or something, unfortunately, that would showcase how they worked, which really sucked. I wanted to see it. But what I did find is it did have to have some type of
drop screen
or something like that to project onto. So that brought me back to was Abner walking them upstairs, putting a drop screen down, bringing them back down, sitting in the spots, and then it was projecting onto the screen.
Or maybe not even having it as what we would think of as a screen, but even if you just took a sheet and just draped it so it was hanging, so it looked like a dress. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
And created the screen that way.
There's also the ability that you doesn't need to be a screen. It can also project onto smoke, from what I understood. So could there be some type of scentless smoke that was inside of the basement that was allowing it to be projected onto? To take this a step further, these magic lanterns were actually used for something called phantasmagoria, which was basically a horror show. And they would have the ability to somehow, and I couldn't find the details to how they did it, but they would use these magic lanterns to project skeletons into the middle of the room, and it would make it look like there's a skeleton in the room with you, and they'd do it with bats and stuff like that. They then found out that if they put these machines on wheels and started moving it closer and further away, it actually looked like these illusions were moving towards you. So all of a sudden I started thinking this all's happening right around this time. It'd be very elaborate.
Yeah.
Very elaborate. And I don't know how you do it in a basement.
Yeah.
But it's plausible.
Yeah, and if you have you'd have to have a group of people that were now, if you're going that big of on scale, you have to have a group of people who are involved in it, right? You have to have someone who's moving the cart,
doing the voice,
upstairs through the speaking tube. It's all plausible.
Yeah.
But to what end?
That's the question. Why?
Yeah.
Why pull this off? Why continue it even after the marriage? If that's the goal, why is this still continuing happening?
And why put 47 people in a small space where it's much easier to get found out? Why not do it outside in a barn or someplace.
I mean,
where
doing it in the basement, it's darker, it's more confined, it's a little bit more like, you're able to more control the environment.
That's a great point. And the counter argument to my magic lantern theory would be this. Well, it happened in a field. It happened supposedly in daylight. Now, I did try to look up and say, hey, could the magic lantern have worked outside at night in a field? And it did say it could, but it would have to be extremely dark for it to ultimately happen. And again, I just don't understand, how do you do it while people are walking and marching 2 by 2 inside of a line? How do you pull this off with people not being able to tell something's going on? And I don't know. And how does it happen in light?
I got a theory, but it involves a time machine.
Okay. So. Put it on the table, Chris. So anyways, so those are my plausible theories that like maybe it'd be so elaborate and I can't figure it out. But you know me, I'm like, there has to be a way or something I'm missing. But I can find no realistic other way this could have been pulled off if it wasn't some combination of these things. Some other theories obviously put out there. Is it a mass hallucination? We've talked about that a bunch on the pod. One person sees something. You go into a situation believing you're going to see something. Does that prime you for doing it? But again, walking in the streets in a field, 4 different people's basements, hundreds of people.
I mean, that's cult mentality though, right?
Yeah. Digging up a grave, I mean, that's sacrilegious.
I mean, people have drank Kool-Aid because they were told they had to, right? So is that completely out of the realm of possibilities? I mean, I don't think so.
Yeah. It's a wild story. It's absolutely insane. None of my other theories are plausible because my next one says the demon. Is it the devil? I guess another theory, witchcraft. I mean, this is 110 plus years after the Salem witch trials. So like maybe people are still believing in that stuff, but I don't know. That seems to be, a stretch in my opinion as well too.
The most logical answer is you have many people from a couple of towns in on this ghost story and making this up and then reporting it. But again, that just doesn't make a lot of sense. I could see 2 or 3 people wanting to pull that off. But you had, 40 people giving testimonies?
And it's not just a ghost story. They exhumed the body of a baby. Like, it goes to such a length that it's not just like...
It led to action. A community started obeying the orders of the spirit.
Of a ghost.
Yeah. Crazy. Like I said, I started reading this and I literally couldn't stop. I was like, this is insane. This is so cool. This is such a fun story to tell.
This is a great story. I've never heard this one before and wow.
Yeah, I want to know, did anybody, make any type of profit off of it? Anything?
Well, the one thing I'll throw out there is our lovely guy Cummings, who put
Abraham,
all
Abraham's
this together.
Coming,
He did sell a book, right? He put it together in a book. So I started thinking, well, inherently, does he have a benefit to elaborating on these stories, especially his last sighting? That's the only profit motive that I could see. I guess I could go back and say maybe Lydia's family wanted to get part of the Butler name because they were a really well-off family inside the community.
I was even thinking, as awful as this may sound, I even had the thought that maybe Lydia's father wanted to kind of, I hate to put it this way, get rid of her because she was sick. She was sick. And
maybe they couldn't
afford it. And she's kind of dead weight to the family. You know what I mean?
Dark, but I get it.
Yeah.
And so he's thinking I just want to marry her off.
Well, they could just drop her off at the church and they wouldn't have to go to all these
but there was probably a lot of shame to that though.
Maybe,
do you know what I mean?
It's interesting when our plausible, rational theories seem more far-fetched than you saw a ghost, bro.
Yeah. This one just left me thinking, and I don't know. Kathy, Chris, I hope y'all enjoyed this story.
This was fantastic. Thank you for sharing it.
Yeah, thank you. And gang, we hope you enjoyed it as well. And if you did, be sure to go over and check out our Instagram. That is @WeirderAfterDark. Well, I'll go ahead and I'll make sure to post some images that will go ahead and support this story. And it's not just Instagram. We're out there building some community. So you can visit us on Reddit as well as Facebook. Again, that is @WeirderAfterDark, where you can talk to us and other individuals who are loving these episodes just like you. And we are out there always looking for your weird New England stories. So I ask you this. Have you seen any spirits in your basement? You talk to anyone in the dark? If you do, go see a therapist. Don't send us a story. But if you do want to send us a story, you can. You can send it to the gang at weirderafterdark.com and we can share it on an upcoming episode. And if you're liking this shit, no. If you're absolutely in love with the shit, the best thing that you can do is leave a 5-star review wherever it is that you are listening to this podcast. And Kathy, quick shout out.
Buy our candles from Ghost Poppy.
Visit ghostpoppy.com, the Kilo Candle. We love you. And remember, it always gets a little weirder after dark.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.